Failure. Sometimes it's an occurrence, sometimes it's a person, as I am consistently reminded of. Failure, can also be something that strikes an unsuspecting novel, and there are a great many things that can cause this to happen, and that's what we're going to go through today. Your novel might fail to engage readers, it might fail to bring any sense of enjoyment, it might fail to deliver the sort of literary and plottological impact that you desired. It may also not sell. So to help you avoid that, here are some things that may cause your novel to fail. Starting with a lack of progress. Any story needs to feel like it's going somewhere. We don't necessarily need to know where it's going, but it needs to feel like it's moving. If a story just feels like it's spinning in place, if the characters just seem to be waiting around, if the plot really doesn't seem to be moving, if the conflict really isn't coming to light, then there won't be a sense of progress and the entire novel can fall flat. Novels are tricky because they're so long, and you have to keep a reader interested in a story for the entire length of the novel, which could be like 80 to 100,000 or more words. You can't have a story that just starts and then waits around for 70,000 words until the end where things finally start to move. You need to be able to tease out that story, break it into small pieces, and distribute those pieces throughout the entire course of the novel in order to give readers this sense of progress, in order to make them feel like the story is actually heading somewhere. You cannot have a sense of progress because the story takes a while to get going. If there's a lot of time that passes between the opening of the novel and the inciting incident when the plot really starts going, that can cause a lack of progress or a lack of a sense of progress. You can also, if you have a lot of repetitive types of scenes in the novel, it can feel like the story isn't really progressing. If there's a bunch of different battles that are always basically the same, or the characters are going to a bunch of meetings that always seem to be the same thing, that can lead to a lack of progress. Teasing out a story chapter by chapter, making it feel like it's progressing, is a tough thing to do. Probably the toughest part of plotting that you'll need to deal with, which is why a lot of novels fail because they don't have a sense of progress. Next up, the story starts and then stops and then starts again. And then maybe starts and then stops again. I've read a few novels, I've critiqued a few novels that start out with an arc. They start out with some kind of conflict, some kind of story, and that story gets resolved. It comes to an end in the middle of the novel. We then have to start on some other story in order to finish the novel and run out the length. This almost always never works. It takes a lot of effort to get a reader invested in a story, to set up an interesting conflict and then have them desire to see how that conflict gets resolved. Hooking the reader and making them want to finish reading the novel is a really tough thing to do. If you manage to do that successfully, but then whatever you've hooked them on ends at the midpoint of the novel, you now have to do a very difficult thing twice in the same novel. It can be kind of jarring because the reader basically has to become reinvested in the story in the middle of the novel. This is tricky to pull off. They might like the first part of the novel better than the second part of the novel. It can cause the tone and the mood and everything to shift. You might be introducing different characters. It's just a mess. Now, sometimes a story will be more episodic, or sometimes there is this weird kind of middle point where things shift and the story takes a different direction. Sometimes that's unavoidable. I would say it's definitely not ideal, but sometimes you can't avoid it. You can get around this problem by linking those disparate parts of the story together with an overarching plot, something that ties them all together, something that gets resolved over the entire course of the novel. Something like The Name of the Wind kind of does this, although that story is quite episodic, but there is these sort of overarching plots that kind of tie it all together, so it makes it feel less disjointed. The Count of Monte Cristo is probably the best example of where there's a large resolution to most of the conflict in the story partway through, and then the tone and the focus and the characters and basically every aspect of the story completely changes from that point on. That novel works though because there is this overarching narrative throughout that ties everything together. That's what you ultimately need if you have these sort of episodic or a plot that gets split in the middle. Next thing that can make a novel fail, the novel tries too hard to do something. I won't say the name of this novel, but I read a novel once where the author was obviously going for like a gritty dystopian kind of vibe. And the way they tried to achieve this was by making all of the descriptions throughout the book be about the most disgusting stuff they could think of. Every time a character ate, they would describe the food stuck to their face and to their teeth. Characters were constantly fighting back diarrhea and flatulence. I'm not kidding about that. And we got a detailed visual of the contents of every trash can and every unflushed toilet that characters encountered throughout the entire story. This is a case where the author was trying extremely hard to make this gritty, uncomfortable, dystopian, dark setting, and it just came across as too much. Pulling something off within a novel is about doing the right amount of something, the right amount of gore, the right amount of violence, the right amount of depressing description. A lot of writers seem to think that just doing more is always better, but that's almost never the case. Readers need just enough information to make conclusion about your characters and your world and your plot. They don't need excessive amounts of information shoved in their faces. This can happen with tone, it can happen with style, it can happen with characterization, it can happen with world building stuff. Anytime you try really, really hard to get something across to a reader and you end up overdoing it. Subtlety in writing is a sign of true skill. The best writers can make a reader understand something with just a couple sentences about it. Any aspect of your novel can come across poorly if it's overdone, if you try too hard, and this can lead the novel to failure. Next thing that can make a novel fail, the writing is painful to consume. The biggest bottleneck between your writing and the reader being able to experience that writing is the writing. I've talked before about how good writing is invisible, in the sense that it does a really good job of transmuting your thoughts and ideas directly into the mind of the reader. Good writing makes people feel things. It can be lavish and poetic, but the consumption of that writing is an easy process because of the clarity and the quality of the writing. There's very little friction between the reader reading the writing and experiencing what you, the writer, want them to experience. No matter how good your plot is, or how interesting your characters are, or how in-depth your world is, if the writing that delivers those ideas is subpar, then the reader will never be able to experience them. If your sentence structure is awkward, if your dialogue attribution isn't clear, if your viewpoints are flimsy, if your descriptions are flat, prose flow, word choice, paragraph structure, even tiny little things like commas, or pluralizing certain words can contribute to a reader having trouble connecting with your writing. It will increase friction between them and the story, which can lead the novel to fail. And the last thing that can lead to the failure of a novel, trying to appeal to everyone. Any novel that has a faction of people who dislike it also tends to have a faction of people who really, really love it. For any reasonably successful author, you'll find a group of people with fanatical hatred towards their work, and likewise, often, a group of people with fanatical levels of admiration for their work. Anything that is attractive to one person will be unattractive to another person. Anything with any value, anything with any merit is polarizing. Anything that resonates with one reader will be despised by another reader. To write a novel that some people love means writing a novel that some people will also hate, or at the very least, intensely dislike. Whether someone likes a novel or doesn't like a novel is a very subjective thing, determined by all kinds of personal factors, and these factors vary between readers in an often contradictory way. You really can't skirt the middle ground and try to appeal to everyone. What you'll end up with is an unfocused, compromised, watered down story that ends up appealing to nobody. The cost of making something that some people love is that some people will definitely not like it. You can't avoid that. To connect with one person means not connecting with another person. Your novel will not be able to make everybody happy. And if you try to write something that makes everybody happy, you will fail at that because you'll end up making nobody happy. Speaking of making nobody happy, this video is about to come to an end. Wait, does that mean that the video was making nobody happy, or the fact that the video is ending is not making anybody happy? I'm not clear on that. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this video in the comments down below. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. I'm talking fast because I think my camera battery is about to die and I don't want it